Do you want another way on how to grow your seeds? In this video, I'm going to show you a really cool way to jam in as many seeds as you can in your seed tray. Hi, this is Jeremy Stark here from Green Thumb Gardener, here to give you some tips, tutorials, and reviews for all your gardening needs. In today's video, I'm going to go over a very unique way on how to actually start your seeds in a seed starting tray. So I do have to give credit to where I actually picked up this particular way of doing it. It's from actually he's a pretty good known author. His name is Craig Houlihan. I hope I'm saying his name right. He actually has a book out. Actually, I think he has a few different books out. And I'll put in the show notes. I'll put some links for those books. But he's known as the tomato guy. Uniquely enough, he actually lives. I live in Raleigh, North Carolina. He actually lives not too far from me. He's somewhere in Raleigh as well. But he's a really well-known author, and I happen to I don't know where I found it exactly, but I just happened to see him do this technique before for starting his seeds, and I thought it was very unique. So, but this is really cool. I think you'll really enjoy this if you're into seed. This is kind of more, I'd say, a little bit more intermediate to advanced technique. If you're not sure if this is right, I also do go over the video in this series. I do go over the one before this. I do actually go over another method that most people will use when they use the seed starting trays. But I wouldn't be afraid to try this way. It's still very simple, and it's pretty unique. Before we get started, actually, if you could, please give us a green thumbs up. Let us know that we're making great videos for you. Also, hit that subscribe button down below. Hit the bell so you get notified of any new videos that we do have. Also, if you could, please also take a look at our link below, and that'll actually get you to our website, gardenerthumb.com, where we have lots of other great content out there for vegetable gardening. Now that we get that out of the way, let's get right into it. All right, so now that we got started with that, what we want to do is we actually want to have the seed trays all ready. So if you haven't already seen this, you want to actually go to our other part of our series that we do have that has basically the equipment that you want to use, as well as the soil that we do use for this. So take a look at those videos right there, and that'll actually show you just a way on how to get this all set up, and it'll go over all the equipment that we do have for this. And then the soil mix, we will have that. There is a recipe that I do show in there as well that'll help you get started. But if you don't have that, you can also use just regular soil mix that you get at your home garden center. But for this part right here, you also want to make sure it's very critical. It's very crucial that when you do put the seed dirt in here, you actually want to have boiling water that you process over the whole seeds itself, and that will basically ensure that you're killing off any kind of basically some gnats that could get into your plants. Now, it doesn't totally cut down on it, but it will sterilize it enough so that the main thing that you want to do is you want to make sure that it is watered. You want to have it boiling water poured over it so that it will get nice and in the mix. It'll basically be nice and ready for you to plant everything. The tray that I have is 5 by 10. So what I did is I made up a particular grid right here. And let me get in here so you guys can see this. You want to make sure that you're writing down the actual seed that you're going to put in, because there's 50 different spots in here. And the way that we're going to lay out this method here is we're going to basically put all of the seeds for one particular variety of your plant inside one planting hole. Now that's very different than the other method that I showed you. If this seems like a little bit more advanced or intermediate, you can just plant one in each hole, and then you can just document it in there. But in this method, what we're going to do is I'm going to have one variety of eggplant, and instead of planting 1 or 2 seeds in here, I'm going to plant like 10 of them in here. Now this will do first off is that it'll give you'll be able to plant more in one particular space, so you'll be able to fit 50 different kinds of plants in each flat that you do have. So, and you may have a different flat that might have a different, I think there's some of them that have like 72 in there. So you just want to make sure that the one that you use, you have basically a guide for it. But if you want, I'll also, if there's enough interest, I'll actually put this on in my website. I'll put it in a blog so that you can download this particular one. If you do have a 51, I'll also see if I can come up with a 72 one as well, because I think that's a pretty common one that you can find in most stores. But in this instance, we're going to do 50. So you want to make sure that you have all of your seeds ready to go. And just so you know which one is basically on here. Now in my document I have, so I'm going to be looking at the seed tray, and in the top left one is number 1, and then it goes down 2, and then it goes back up to 6. So basically, all I need to know is this corner right here is the number 1 hole, and then every time that I plant something in down here, I'm just recording it on the sheet so I know where it is. So you have to be organized in this particular method, because you don't really want to have 50 sticks pointing out of here, you know, like little things. So I just make it easy, and I just write everything down on the sheet here. So I'll put a piece of tape right here, and I will know that that's the number 1, and then I'll also put, because I have 2 flats that I'm going to use, and I'll put that, you know, this is number 1 out of 1 or something like that, just to identify it. So just make sure that you do that extra step as well, because then you'll ensure that you basically ensure that you're, you know, planting the right stuff in there. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just show you just you know, maybe a couple of holes so that you can see what I'm doing. But you want to I suggest that that if you're going to be planting different varieties of plants in here, the one thing that's going to be, the main thing that's going to be different with each seed is the germination time. Some of the seeds that you have, they take a few days to germinate. They might take a week. Some of them may even take longer. I know there's, I think basil is one of them that does take, or parsley, I believe, is an herb that does take quite a bit of time for it to germinate. Now we're going to also plant these. We're going to put a heating mat under it, and we're going to cover this up with our little greenhouse little cover here. So that does help promote the germination a little bit, you know, a little bit quicker than if you just left it, you know, in the regular ambient temperature in your room or whatever you have it. I always suggest to try to keep things, you know, even if it's just, if you're using this one, if you have just one of these, to try to keep all of the same types of plants together, because you know that those are going to germinate, you know, around the same time, as opposed to some other ones down there. That some of the varieties may not also germinate the same time, even though they're the same tomato. They could take a few days apart. It's just one of those things that you just have to be aware of, that they're not always going to come out. They're not all going to come up at the same time, but it's just something to note for you. So I suggest, like, if you're doing, I have a lot of different varieties of peppers and eggplants and tomatoes. Those are usually the ones that they kind of germinate sort of around the same time. There's usually a week to 2-week germination period. And a lot of these are the kind of old seeds as well. So I'm trying to, you know, some of them may not even germinate at all. So I'm basically gonna keep those together. I'm gonna keep my tomatoes, eggplants, and peppers in this particular one. And then the other flat that I have another flat as well, I'm gonna put everything else in there. All right, so as I said, you wanna make sure that you have everything all organized and ready to go. Having your sheet available so that you can write down where you're going. And as you can see, I did actually put the number here, so I know where at least the number 1 seed is, and I can kind of follow it down in my little diagram that I have. So I'm just going to do I'm actually going to just do 2 different seeds, and I'm not going to show you the whole thing here, but I'm going to do at least 2 of them so that you can at least get an idea of what I'm doing. So you want to make sure that you have all your seeds ready to go, and you want to keep everything organized, because you don't want to mix these seeds up. So I'm going to plant in each hole. I'm probably just going to do maybe like 10 in each one. So I'm going to count out 10 in my little seed thing right here. I have, in this one, I'm doing some eggplant Bangladesh in here. So I'm going to plant 10 of these in here. So what I do is very simple. I am just going to put the 10 in this particular hole right here, and I kind of just spread them out as best as I can. I don't want to, I mean, they're going to be growing all in the same thing as all at once, but I still want to kind of have it spread out a little bit so that so that they're not all on top of each other, but they're really going to grow right next to each other. I mean, that's just part of this whole method here. So another thing too, I forgot to mention, and I probably should have done this, is you actually want to pack down each tray, because I had poured water in here and it kind of got a little messed up. But you want to pack down this, as best you can, so that it is flat when you're basically putting each seed in there. And then once I get all the seeds in here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to press this down, and I still have a little bit of my mix right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sift over the seed in here with just enough mix. I don't want to cover it too deep, but I want them at least to be covered so that they're not going to kind of fly away or anything like that. All right, so I have that one in there. I've already written it down, Bangladesh eggplant for the first one. So as I said, try to keep all this together. You want to keep this organized. So in the second one, I'm going to do the Black Beauty eggplant. These are nice. I love this variety of eggplant. They get nice and big, so they're really good for eggplant parmesan if you're into that. So I'm going to plant. These are the Black Beauty ones. Like I said, these are pretty good. But these are great because like I was saying, my grandfather was a big gardener, and he was Italian, so he loved making all kinds of parmesans. So I always think of eggplant parm when I always think of eggplant. But I do love eggplant too. The other eggplant, the first one I planted, and take a look at it, is the Bangladesh eggplant. I'll put a link in the show notes for that one. But that one is a little bit thin and a little bit longer, so they're a little bit different than the Black Beauties. The Black Beauties are much thicker. They're really good for for Parmesan. But I think these would be good for I don't know. I think these would be good for like stir fries, other things like that. Where you can kind of chop them up. They're a little bit smaller. They're not as thick for an eggplant, but. I like a variety of different things, so I try to plant a few different varieties of everything. So in this hole, I planted 2 of them. I planted about 10 different ones in here. I kind of spread them around so that I know that it's in here, and then I'm going to write down on here. I'm going to plant eggplant, and then Black Beauty is in hole number 2. So that's why I said this is one of those things you have to keep track of. You have to really know which one, because there's so many holes in there that you can't, if you didn't keep track of it, you wouldn't know. So I already planted that, so I'm just basically going to put a little bit of my mix over it. And I'm just going to kind of stamp it down a little bit. Okay. So now you can go ahead and just do all of these, and you can even just plant them, and then you kind of do everything all at once if you want to batch everything up. It doesn't really matter. But the other step that you want to do for this is that you do want to make sure you water it. Now, you've already watered this pretty good on the when you pour the boiling water, and it should actually have enough water in the bottom of this. So you can, also put a little bit more in there so it doesn't dry out. But you want to make sure that after you put the top part of it on, that you are wetting it down. So I like to take just a spray bottle, and I want to give it a nice good soaking, okay? Because this is the whole important part of germination is its contact with the soil, and it's wet, the heat, all that plays into it. It tells the seed to get started there. So that's basically it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill this all up with all my other seeds, make sure I write down everything in here, and then I'm going to, once I'm done with that, I'll show you the next step. So let me go ahead and I'll do that portion of it. All right, so now that you've got all the seeds in here and you've wrote down where they're going to actually be, the next step that you want to do is you want to make sure that you cover all of the seeds up with the seed starting mix that you have. On the top of it, I like to add a little bit more vermiculite, so I kind of add to my normal seed starting mix. I add just a little bit more vermiculite in here.
because that really helps hold the water. So then I just basically in each cell I just, I basically want to get it a little bit over to just enough to cover the seeds. You don't want to have too much in here, but you want to have just enough so that it is covering the actual seeds itself. So I just kind of make sure I go through each particular seed and I fill it up. All right, so now that basically you pressed everything down, the next step that you want to do is you want to take your water bottle and you want to actually give it a pretty good soaking on top. Now just be careful because this is really dry. So this is going to maybe start from the top and just kind of wet it a little bit because this will kind of blow all over the place. But once it gets wet, it really just won't get over all over the place. And then sometimes you might see, like I see a couple of seeds as I start watering it, they might kind of poke through a little bit. So I want to make sure that it is covered with this in here. So you really just want to give it a nice, good watering in here. Now the soil should already be pretty wet from when you first put the boiling water in there, so it should have a good soaking. But this is just the top layer that we put over it, so we want to make sure that it's really good. All right, then once you get all that, you get that watered down, really the only step that you need to do now is you actually want to, you can cover it. There's a couple of different things you can do. I have a bunch of these, they're like little greenhouse covering things. So I just put these right on top of it. Now, if you didn't have this, you can put some kind of plastic over it. And what that's going to do is that when you put this under when you put this under the heat mat underneath it, it is going to, give some heat to the bottom. So what this does is that it keeps it from drying out, and it acts like almost like it is like a greenhouse basically. So it will trap some of the moisture and the heat in here, but some of them you might want to vent. So they usually have like a little thing on top, and you want to vent it. Now, when you do start noticing that these do sprout, you actually want to turn off the heating mat, because you don't want it to. It doesn't really, at that point, it doesn't really need bottom heat for it. It's going to grow once it sprouts through. So just be aware of that, and you also want to take off this cover. You can leave this still on when it is growing, and obviously if they get big, but I definitely would not put the heat on once they do sprout. And that's why it's important to have this separated out as far as when you know that the seeds will germinate. You can always look on the back of the packets, and they'll usually give you an idea of how long it takes to germinate. So that's why I say to try to keep them in the same thing. But if you have it kind of mixed up a little bit, that's still okay. Just be aware that that they're going to germinate at the different times. So maybe if you can also move basically the heat mat down. So if your tomatoes all came up and you have something on over here that doesn't, then you can move it down to where that is. But obviously you don't want to keep it covered. Once it does sprout, you want some some airflow in the actual seeds in there. Now it's okay if there's some of them sprouting, you're not going to keep this on for a long period of time after they do sprout. So hopefully that helped you. And I'm going to go over another video. I'm going to go in a future video. I'm going to show you after the sprouts, kind of the next step from that point, and maybe I'll have an update on what this actually looks like before we do that. But if you have any questions, please post in the comments below. Let me know what you think of this method, and definitely give Craig out there. I think he has I believe he has a blog, and I'll see if I can find. I'll post it out there just because he's really he's been doing this for years. Very much an expert in this. But I thought it was a great technique, and I had all these seeds I had to just make sure they germinated. So please give us a green thumbs up. Let us know that you do like this. Also, if you could subscribe below, I think it's down there. I always forget where it is, but subscribe below and just let us know and hit that bell so you get notified of any videos. And then also take a look at our links in the show notes below where we'll have content on our blog out there if you wanted some more information on that. And as always, we'll see you in the next video.